Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our monthly Mornings with O'Keefe program. We're so happy that you're here. I see folks are logging on, so I'm just going to wait a few seconds before we formally get started. But in the meantime, just expressing thanks to you for taking the time to join us today. And especially for those of you who are regular viewers, we really appreciate your support. For those of you who maybe have not joined us before, my name is Molly and I manage adult programs at the Georgia O'Keeffe Museum. And this is one of the great projects and programs that we get to share with you. And we, again, appreciate that you're taking part. I'd like to begin by recognizing the lands of the Pueblo people on which the sites of the Georgia O'Keeffe Museum stand. We recognize and honor their elders, past and present, and celebrate the vitality of their people today and into future generations. I offer this with humility and gratitude and acknowledgement of the need to confront the ongoing injustices of settler colonialism. I'd also like to extend a thank you to the members and donors who are here with us today because it's from support like you that make free events like Mornings with O'Keefe possible. If you're not yet a member and enjoy this program or would like to learn more about the benefits membership can offer, please visit our website at gokm.org/membership. Throughout this conversation, you're welcome to place questions in the Q&A box, which can be found at the bottom or top of your screen, depending on your device. We will try to answer as many questions as we can at the end of the conversation. Please note that following today's talk, a recording will be made available on the O'Keeffe Museum website in about a week or two, once we've had a chance to add captions in English and Spanish to the video. So it is now my pleasure to formally start our program today. We are joined by Margaret Bauer for a very special anniversary to celebrate the 30th anniversary of the release of the Red Poppy stamp, which features one of O'Keeffe's iconic red poppy paintings, and it turns 30 this month. And today's conversation is going to be part interview, part chat, but really just some insights into what it was like for Margaret, who was the graphic designer for this stamp, to be a part of the project and some of the other work that she does and has done as a part of her career. So before we jump in, I just want to formally introduce Margaret, who founded Margaret Bauer Graphic Design in 2007. Her studio is based in Washington, D.C., with a focus on museum and university press publications. Before opening the studio, Bauer was design manager of the publishing office at the National Gallery of Art, where she worked from 1994 to 2006. Bauer studied Russian and Soviet history at Yale University and then earned an MFA in graphic design from Yale School of Art. Bauer was formerly an adjunct professor at the Cochrane School of the Arts and Design at George Washington University, where she taught publication design. She's also worked with the United States Postal Service to create stamps, including sheets celebrating modern American architecture and American industrial design. Margaret says that every project provides opportunities for learning about new topics, new techniques, new typefaces, and new materials. She enjoys the research phase as much as the actual making of each project. She relishes the collaboration that bookmaking entails. The most successful books emerge when that collaboration begins early and remains integral throughout the project's evolution. Bauer's work has been recognized with awards from the American Institute of Graphic Arts, American Association of Museums, the Association of University Presses, ID Magazine, Stiftung Buckhurst, sorry to obliterate that, and the New York Book Show. And it's such a pleasure to have you today, Margaret. And even though we did go over a bit of your background, it would be wonderful to start the conversation hearing from you more about you and your background and your career.
Well, thank you very much for having me, and I'm always happy to share things about what I love, which is graphic design and art. So thank you for having me. And a quick apology about some of the black and white grainy nature of some of these images. They're all I have left from the long ago design process of designing the O'Keeffe stamp. And I can't open any of the original files anymore. So anyway, you'll see what I mean, but hopefully it will be informational. About me, I was born in New Haven, Connecticut, and I grew up in New York City, Lynchburg, Virginia, Washington, D.C., and Boston, Massachusetts. I've enjoyed making art from the get-go, but didn't think of myself as an artist. In college, I studied history, mostly Russian and Soviet, and took my first graphic design class at Yale during my senior year. After working as a researcher at National Geographic Television for 3 years, I went back to school to study graphic design at the Yale School of Art, which had a 2-year master's program. Then I worked in the graphic design department of WGBH Boston, Georgetown University Publishing Office, and finally landed at the National Gallery of Art in 1994, where I worked for 12 years. Since 2007, I've had my own design business focused on making exhibition catalogs for museums. Oh, I can't hear you.
I've fallen in the mute trap where I've muted myself. Thank you for letting me know. I was just saying that it's always so interesting to hear about a career journey and how many different things and places you've lived. So thank you for sharing that with us. And more specifically about stamps and your graphic design work, how is it that stamps became part of that part of your work?
Well, I was lucky enough, a very dear friend and fellow Yale MFA graphic design program colleague, Jerry Noyes Craig, is an art director for the US Postal Service. And like most graphic designers, I love stamps. So when she asked if I could design the O'Keeffe stamp with her in 1995, I said a resounding yes. We had worked together on other projects, and we make a very good team. We have similar aesthetic, and we push each other to take chances and be better at what we do. I've been fortunate to work with her on several other stamp projects. More on that later. I will add here that stamps are incredibly fun to work on. I had a teacher that described stamp design as poster design in miniature. A lot of the same issues come into play, issues of readability and strong visuals. There's not a lot of real estate to work with, so the typography has to be carefully considered, and issues of scale and balance are important. I particularly enjoy working on sheets of stamp because then I'm thinking about the composition of the sheet as a whole, in addition to the design of each individual stamp. And of course, it is thrilling to get a letter in the mail with a tiny piece of my creative work stuck in the corner.
Thank you so much. And you had mentioned with that last photo when we were having a chat that folks actually will send you a request for your signature to go along with the stamp.
Yeah, I mean, there's a big I'm going to pronounce this wrong, in the philatelic community. Yeah, there's a real commitment to sort of really collecting in a very serious way, and so people want the signatures of the artist of who designed the stamp, of the I don't know. There are whole tables set up at these events, first day issues, and people will come by with the things that they've purchased or just the stamps and get you to, sign your signature. But I would say I got about 20 letters in the mail after the stamp came out asking for my signature with a return, postage already included envelope to send back my signature on their stamp sheet or whatever it was they wanted me to sign. It was kind of fun.
That does sound fun and a special experience for the collector who kind of has, some background and a connection to you who had a hand in creating the stamp. We'd also just love to hear more about the step-by-step journey of what the process looks like to design a stamp for the USPS, and we'd love to hear more about that.
Sure, I will give you sort of an overview of just the whole process of how a stamp gets made. The journey of a stamp from concept to final product can vary widely. The Georgia O'Keeffe stamp is a commemorative stamp. It's a semi-jumbo in size. Each year, the United States Postal Service makes about 20 commemorative stamps. The rest are mail use booklets, holiday stamps, and flag stamps. Subjects for commemorative stamps come from recommendations, about 40,000 a year, from the general public, the members of the Citizen Stamp Advisory Committee, and from the Postmaster General. No living people are allowed on commemorative stamps. Each year, they adopt a stamp program that they hope will appeal to a cross-section of America, balanced to communicate important historical events, important dates, birthdays, anniversaries. Of course, some are just fun or made simply to be attractive. There are roughly 10 subject categories that they consider: Americana, patriotic; history, nature and wildlife; youth, fun, culture; celebration, entertainment; fine art and architecture; science and innovation; social awareness; and sports. The Citizen Stamp Advisory Committee was established in 1957 and has 12 to 15 members, who are appointed by the Postmaster General. It is made up of a cross-section of people with expertise in all kinds of fields, including history, science, business, design, education, etc. They meet 4 times a year to discuss subjects and to review art in progress and approve the final stage of design. There are also 4 art directors who guide the process of each stamp. They are contract employees. Stamp subjects are assigned to each of them by the Director of Stamp Services inside the U.S. Postal Service. They meet every month to review ongoing progress of everything in production. They critique each other's work and they collaborate. Each art director works with outside artists and designers as they see fit for each project. That's where I come in. Once a stamp design is approved, Stamp Services takes the final art to the Postmaster General for a final sign-off. He or she may also have special requests that can be added to the program each year.
It is astounding that there are 40,000 proposed stamps each year and that ultimately 20 make it to the final distribution phase.
Well, there's more than 20. There's 20 commemorative
Or
stamps,
commemorative,
and there's
yes.
other things, but the special topic stamps, there's just 20 each year.
Incredible. It must be really interesting to be a part of that decision process to select 20 stamps that would really appeal to the diverse tastes and experiences of America. That's so
Yeah,
interesting.
I would think so. I think being on the Citizen Stamp Advisory Committee would be a pretty cool job.
Agreed. How do I get that? No, just kidding. But it's very interesting to learn about it. Thank you so much for giving us a behind the scenes sense of what that was like. And as far as the O'Keeffe stamp goes, would you talk a little bit about what that design process was like? Were there other iterations of the stamp that didn't make it to the final production, or other ideas that you could share as a part of that process?
Yes, gladly. Um, First things first, what does it mean to be a designer? To be a designer is to be a problem solver. And that means taking the stated assignment and looking at it from all sides, doing research, asking questions, evaluating the possibilities, testing those possibilities, and then arriving at a solution, which may be different from the original assumed outcome. As Paul Rand, the father of graphic design, has written in his book, A Designer's Art, the designer does not begin with a preconceived idea. Rather, the idea is the result of careful observation, and the design is a product of that idea. The designer experiences, perceives, analyzes, organizes, symbolizes, and synthesizes, and then hopefully creates a tangible solution. So as mentioned already, the subject of O'Keeffe was determined by the Citizen Stamp Advisory Committee and assigned to Derry Noyes Craig as art director. At this point, it wasn't known if it would be a sheet of 12 or 15 different stamps, or if there would just be one stamp design. Derry hired me to do the research and come up with mock-ups that would help the committee decide what direction to take. I looked at a lot of books, I photocopied many flowers, and watched videos about O'Keeffe to gain a grasp of the subject before diving into the design. Although she has a wide range of painting topics, O'Keeffe is probably best known for her flower paintings. She made over 200 of them, mostly between 1918 and 1932. So we decided to focus on the flowers. Once that choice was made, we researched what photography was available through private and public collections, and then began thinking about what works of art might go together well on a sheet, while also considering such thing as Should it be a sheet of 12 stamps or a sheet of 15? Should they be horizontal stamps or vertical? What should the background image be? Should we include a quotation from the artist? How should the type be, and where should it be put? As things progressed, we looked at the possibility of having 6 different stamps, or maybe just 3. And we tried the quotation in a variety of ways. Here we tried wrapping a longer version of the quotation around the stamps. It reads in full, "Nobody sees a flower, really. It is so small. We haven't time. And to see takes time, like to have a friend takes time. So I said to myself, I'll paint what I see, what the flower is to me, but I'll paint it big, and they will be surprised into taking time to look at it." In the end, we only used the first part of the quotation, but I love the idea that we took her big flowers and made them small again, begging the attention of the stamp viewer. At some point, it was decided that we would just make a single image stamp. Red Poppy from 1927 was selected as the best option. The type treatment of O'Keeffe's name was kept simple and elegant, running down the right side of the stamp in slender sans serif all capitals, with the 32 and USA stacked and bolder in the lower left corner. As for all stamps, the art was prepared at 400% of actual size for approval and review. Further considerations ensued about what the sheet background should be and where the quotation should be placed. Here, here, or here. Until at last, the winner was determined, using a background photograph by Tony Vaccaro taken in 1960. The timeline from start to finish for each stamp subject varies enormously. In many cases, the legal side can slow down approval and might result in a subject not making it to the finish line. Final art that has been approved by the committee can languish due to unforeseen legal hurdles, in which case the subjects get moved to a future year or shelved altogether. I signed a contract for the O'Keeffe stamp in March 1995, and the sheet was officially issued on May 23, 1996. The USPS printed 156 million of them.
That's an incredible number of stamps. And they're all about. And, just hearing you talk about that, just a couple thoughts, which is first, for me, I'm just much more accustomed to seeing a stamp all by itself, and I even have a poppy stamp right here.
Look at
And
that.
it's all alone on the envelope. And so to hear your explanation of when you design a sheet and how much you're actually incorporating into what is an entire artwork and composition with the background, with the details and the quotes, with how the sheet looks as a unit and how the things look individually when they're put on letters. And that is just so interesting. And I'd love to hear more about just how composition overall uh, is part of this stamp design.
Um, well, how is composition? I mean, you're thinking about things like um, color and scale and that sort of thing. And yeah, I mean, you're looking at all these black and white images that I have, but the minute you throw the color in there, you're also trying to balance all of those things out and whether it'll be readable from a distance. Yeah, I don't know, a million things, where the type will go, how they'll relate, how does it relate to the background, how do you separate the stamps from the background, or how do you integrate them? So many things come into to play there, and that's what makes it fun. And I hope maybe you all will never look at a sheet of stamps the same way again.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely won't, because there's just so many considerations that go into it that I'm grateful to know now because every time I do receive something with a stamp, I'm going to think about, commemorative stamps specifically, like what was the larger story and how can I learn about the whole piece instead of just the part. But something else you said that was so interesting too, and why I appreciated seeing your photocopies from the books that you looked through and the research that you did to compile samples that would become drafts for the stamp. If what has changed in that process between 30 years ago and today about image access and research, and what was it like back then when you were collecting all of these potential images? How did you get them?
Yeah, I mean, certainly today the internet allows you just to type in a few words and up pops, a million possibilities. So I think the research aspect of it is the primary part that has changed. I mean, we had to go to libraries and bookstores and either buy the books or Xerox things, and then you had to bring it home and scan it, and then like just to get to the point where you could begin making took a long time, and was more complicated. So I think that's probably the major way. I think other than that, the process I think hasn't changed that much. You're still, I mean, even then we were doing it digitally and making PDFs and sharing things digitally. But yeah, they're still presented to the committee in a physical format. They're output. They're trimmed to size. So things are still shown physically so that you can get a sense of the real scale and whatnot, which is I think hard to do sometimes digitally. So that's still pretty much the same. So I think primarily it's how research is done that's probably changed most.
That's really interesting, and I think what you had to say about seeing these flower paintings in person and also in books, the scale, what O'Keeffe said in her quote, she really wants that to be a large scale to put the viewer inside. And I thought what you said about making it small again was poetic, and it's true because having the stamp in front of me, I'm invited to really take a close look, and it's interesting how that philosophy still works as the stamp version of the painting.
I think too that that was actually one of her smaller paintings. Like I don't think that was a huge painting. Like I think it was, really a pretty minute size in terms of her flower paintings. That's my recollection, at least.
Yeah, and again, that's so very true. They weren't all large as far as like physical space, but the cropping and the zooming
Right, right,
for
right.
sure is what pulls the viewer in, and it's still, even as a tiny stamp, I'm still eager to do that. It's kind of a little reward to take a closer look. So moving on to when the stamp was actually released. When the stamp was finally released, it was met with a lot of excitement, including a first day issue celebration here in Santa Fe at the Plaza. And I wonder if you could tell us a little bit more about that and how you were involved with the official release.
Yeah, the Postal Service kindly flew me down to the opening, and there was a ton of good feeling about the issuing of the O'Keeffe stamp. She was a well-loved female artist, and there was particular joy in Santa Fe. Um, this ad for the stamp and the festival appeared in one of the local papers, and several articles were written about the stamp and the celebrations surrounding it. The U.S. Postal Service, in coordination with the Museum of Fine Arts and the Georgia O'Keeffe Foundation, took over the Santa Fe Plaza for the unveiling. There were booths and speeches and a mariachi band. Stamps and other paraphernalia were for sale. There was also an evening ceremony held at O'Keeffe's home in Abiquiu at a time when the site was not yet open to visitors. And having spent so much time with her art, it was amazing to have the opportunity to see the inside of her beautiful home.
Absolutely, and I want to take a moment just to remind our viewers that this was before the museum, as we understand it today, was open, and so that's so special that there was still a big celebration and that you were able to visit O'Keeffe's home before it was being publicly toured. And was there anything from that visit that was especially memorable for you? Any of the rooms or any of her objects?
Yeah, it was a long time ago now. But no, I just remember being struck by just, everything in its place in terms of like beautiful stones or rocks displayed in a very particular way and on a windowsill and a view and the simplicity of her furniture and again like a pop of color of a pillow or just that it was so representative of her sensitivity that yeah it just was amazing and to see where she worked and lived was pretty wonderful.
It's such a special experience to visit the home and studio in Abiquiu. I highly recommend it to anyone because it does just feel like you're in a moment in time, and yeah, it sticks with you. I'm glad you were able to experience it during
Yeah,
the
I
stay.
need to go back. Clearly, it's been a long time, so it'd be fun to go see it again.
Yes, come back. It's beautiful and well cared for. We're very fortunate to have that as part of the museum. So, keeping on O'Keeffe and talking about O'Keeffe, are there other O'Keeffe related projects that you've worked on besides the stamp?
Yes, I have worked on three other O'Keeffe projects, three books. Um, Two projects for Yale University Press. One was an exhibition catalog for a show at the Portland Museum of Art titled Georgia O'Keeffe and the Camera. And one was the first volume of the O'Keeffe Stieglitz Letters. I also designed an exhibition catalog about O'Keeffe's work on paper for the National Gallery of Art. And I've also done some more stamps, which I would love to show you as well. I designed several several sheets, all of them with Derry Noyes Craig, including a sheet of teddy bears in 2001, a sheet of Masterworks of Modern American Architecture in 2005, a sheet of Pioneers of American Industrial Design in 2011, and a sheet of Romare Bearden stamps also in 2011, and Modern Art in America in 2013. I have also worked on other stamp subjects that didn't make it to final production, but I am not, unfortunately, at liberty to tell you about them.
So yes, those subjects will remain in the vault, I suppose. But it is very exciting to see first not only the O'Keeffe projects you've worked on, because we see those books around our offices and in our library, and it's really interesting now to have met you and know that who the graphic designer for those books was, which is special. But it's also wonderful to have seen more stamp projects that you've been a part of. And of the ones you showed us, is there one project in particular that really uh, was remarkable or that you remember fondly?
Yeah, I think I probably enjoyed working on the Masterworks of American Modern Architecture. It was the first sheet that I'd done that was multiple, that ended up being multiple stamps, and the process of trying to figure out how to take many different types of imagery, because the imagery all existed already, and so it all had looked different, was from different photographers, how to make it into a cohesive whole. So that fueled our decision to make all of the images black and white and let the color come from the typography and the surround. But then also the decision to make details instead of trying to show the whole building, because they're small. So what could you actually get a sense of? And the details make it more interesting. And we hope that you still are able to get a sense of the whole building, even though you're just seeing details. But choosing the objects and then deciding what order do they go in, and which ones look good sitting next to each other, and all that sort of stuff was really an extreme pleasure. It was really a lot of fun to work on. And of course, we worked with experts in the field of architecture, like um, the New York Times critic Paul Goldberger helped us decide what images to use. But there was an awful lot of, like, I don't even know if I could do a presentation like this on these sheets, because we worked on it. It was more than a year, and we had so many iterations. But it was a tremendous joy to work on this project.
And they're so fun to look at. And what you had to say about one, the decision to make all the images black and white, so there's some unity there, makes so much sense. Although I'm not a graphic designer, I wouldn't have been able to articulate it, but visually, I understand why that's so successful. And because it's so difficult to have a whole building on such a small surface, to see these iconic buildings and these really unusual and exciting views, like the Chrysler Building and the Guggenheim. It's fun to be like, I recognize those places, but I've never seen it like this. So that's really, really beautiful. And I think too, what's interesting to hear about the process is how curatorial the conversation really is to make a choice of this small set out of all of the buildings in the US that could have been featured and how they hang together, so to speak, on the page. That's just, and also that you received like consultation from experts in the field. There's just so much to consider.
Well, I think that's probably true for almost every stamp. They have
Mm.
experts and people who research and make sure that everything is like, if they're doing a history stamp, there are people who are, and they're hiring an illustrator to do that. The picture, like somebody is researching every detail of that illustration to make sure that it is historically accurate. And so there's a lot of working with specialists for all of the stamps. But using the word curator is a really appropriate terminology, I think, for what the art director is often doing for a stamp is really curating, trying to figure out what are the best, most appropriate elements, and what is the story that you're trying to tell through a sheet of stamps.
Absolutely. And just the fact that I've lost my visual aid, but that behind every stamp are just so many people, so many different sets of expertise from you as a graphic designer to the historians to the members of the council. It's really kind of inspiring to know that there are so many people involved in creating something so
So
common
small.
that we explore in our normal lives. Yes, absolutely. I have a new appreciation for sure. And speaking of bringing objects into our homes and how, through our daily life, we're engaging with works of art like Red Poppy as a stamp, museum catalogs and posters and stamps and things like this. Oftentimes, they're the most accessible way for people to engage with these iconic works of art. And I wonder if you could share some considerations that you keep in mind when you're creating material like publications for museums or stamps that ultimately serve as a bridge between the public and the artist or the institution that's being represented.
Yeah. First and foremost, I try to be respectful of the artwork and the artist's intentions. And of course, one is trying to make it appealing for the viewer. When working on an exhibition catalog, I'm working closely with the curator whose vision and story about the art is being told. So I'm also trying to take his or her conception of the art and the show into consideration. That said, a book is different than a show, physically and experientially. So a book is also a good place to take liberties and to do things that can't be done in a show, like enlarge details of works, or pair things together for side by side comparison. I'm an advocate for creating a strong structure for the elements of the book to hang on: text columns, margins, page number placement, header styles, etc. And I like to employ elements of surprise such that every once in a while, when flipping pages, the viewer comes upon something novel: a full page detail, an image surrounded by lots of white space, or a black page, a pop of color, some interesting typography. But that these things are all done in keeping with the overall sensibilities of the artwork being presented. I think that some of the same issues are true for stamps as well. A stamp is not the actual object, it is a representation of that object, or rather an homage to that object, and that means it should be treated respectfully, but could also be treated in a bold or playful way, or combined with new elements that help the viewer see the art in surprising and perhaps unexpected ways.
Mm. And it's wonderful to see like more examples of your work, especially the books. And of the book projects you've been a part of, are there any that were really especially memorable to complete?
Yes, I'm always happy to talk about my books. I've had the wonderful opportunity to work on projects with living artists. I designed an exhibition catalog with the photographer Sally Mann for the National Gallery of Art, which was a terrific experience and remains one of my favorites. The book and the show were titled Sally Mann, A Thousand Crossings. But I think my most treasured catalog experience was with National Gallery of Art curator Sarah Greenow and the photographer Robert Frank. The book and the show were titled Looking In, Robert Frank's The Americans. It focused on Frank's iconic photography book called The Americans, and the multiple publications of that volume, and how he reshuffled and recropped photographs with every new edition. The exhibition catalog was large and complex, with multiple authors and subsections. Working with a living artist made the task exciting, but also more complicated. Here's how I solved the design problems. Bold divider pages indicated the beginning of each of the 4 sections. Each section has multiple essays. Each essay is followed by a plate section, for which there was also a divider page, and then many pages of images. And there was extensive back matter, an exhibition list, a concordance of images for each edition of the Americans, and approximately 100 pages of contact sheets from which Frank chose the images for his book. The challenge of pulling all these elements together in a cohesive and beautiful way, keeping the book below 400 pages while also satisfying the curator, the publisher, and Robert Frank was a tall task, but one that I look back on with great pride. And the end papers, handwritten letters of Robert Frank, remain one of my favorite design decisions.
It's very clear, you know, just looking at images of that book, in addition to the others that you showed us, how lovely it would be to spend time with those books. You know, all of the rewards that one would have, you know, placed there very strategically, so that there is that invitation to really dig in, to really appreciate those images and the way that they're arranged and the story that they tell. But also what you talked about, with decisions that you make with these catalogs, are the details, the blowing up of a painting to be able to see like the true paint strokes, or you know, the physical nature of those works. And it wasn't until we had a conversation, yesterday, that I really thought about how much I love exhibit catalogs. Many of my colleagues, many of my friends, we all, you know, have quite the collection of exhibition catalogs, many of which for exhibitions I've never seen, because it is such a gateway to experience that collection of work. But something that you pointed out that I hadn't thought about was really you're able to engage with these works in a way you never could in person because of those decisions to zoom in, those surprises that, where you place the things on the page. And I wonder if you wouldn't mind talking just a little bit more about the experience you're providing in a book that truly you actually couldn't necessarily obtain when you visit an exhibition.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've actually put it all pretty well, but I do think that a book is an opportunity to experience the work in a way that you can never experience it on the wall, in the way that experiencing it on the wall can never be replicated in a book. I mean, they really are two very different things, but being able to see a super close-up detail of something that you might not be able to see in a very tiny painting, or the brushstroke, in fact, or a fingerprint, which I think was true. I can't remember. I think it's Da Vinci who you know would use his fingers, and they have fingerprints. So things like that, or being able to compare works of art and to be able to look at them both side by side, maybe perhaps completely out of scale, but to evaluate things in conjunction with one another, and yeah, and then also to see it all together, you know. So there are a lot of times that works are scattered all over the world and you will never see them hanging together, and so like a book can bring them together in one place where you can again compare and contrast and things like that. But and a book you have to hold and to return to over and over again. So yeah, and you're creating a narrative by the order in which you place things and where you put the text, and things like that. So you get a story being told that is maybe different from your experience of the exhibition.
Absolutely. And even for the cases where one might see the exhibition and then purchase the catalog, there's just so many variables when you're in the galleries. It could be very busy, you could be in a hurry, and just to have that supplement or that addition, to be able to revisit that experience and also potentially, engage even more deeply, especially with essays and other things that maybe didn't make it into the exhibition formally.
Yeah, and well, for example, this book that I just showed you, the Looking In, 100 pages of contact sheets, which, I think they only showed a few of them in the exhibition. But here you have the entire collection of contact sheets from which you can see his grease pencil marks, the choosing the final image that he put in his book. I mean, that's a wonderful like resource to be able to have that to flip through at your leisure.
Absolutely. That book does I can just tell even from your images, it just invites you to spend time. And many of my catalogs and my personal collection are falling apart because I've just wanted to look through so many times. So to wrap up the more formal part of our conversation, I wonder if you could share any advice for current or prospective graphic designers who are interested in working in this field in particular.
Sure. Um, Graphic design is a much more popular and better recognized profession now than when I started some 35 years ago. And although technology is ever present these days and has certainly changed the landscape of the profession, it has not changed the essence of the work. Ultimately, graphic design is about the relationship of words and images, about mark making, and about problem solving, which can be a very satisfying way to spend one's time. Although some people have a natural affinity for things like composition, color, technical craft, drawing, and thinking creatively, I believe training, particularly in typography, is extremely helpful. Curiosity, playfulness, and the ability to do research of all kinds are also important assets. Museums are thriving and art is being made every day, so there remains a need for graphic designers to translate, narrate, and communicate the art message to others. Although technology and digital publishing are now integral to the profession, books and stamps haven't disappeared. So I think there's still a career to be made there in the ink and paper world. And being part of the universe that helps bring art and artists to a broader audience is a wonderful way to make a living. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much just for sharing so much insight about your work, about the stamp. I learned so much and have such a deep appreciation, truly, not only for stamps, but the museum publications. It's given me so much to think about. So thank you so much,
Well,
Margaret.
thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. And we're pleased to celebrate the 30th anniversary of the stamp. And sometimes we are able to do little giveaways as a part of these programs. And I have here two first issue commemorative envelopes here that have a photo of O'Keeffe along with the stamp.
And
And
had a designer. I think it was Ellen Campanigro who designed the those for the first day of issue. I think.
oh, we should look into that so that we can
Yes, she was a local designer, in fact, Santa Fe personality.
Oh, I'm so glad you mentioned so that we will also answer that question. And again, it's like a beautiful little piece of history. And we have a couple of these that we will be able to give away to a couple lucky random folks in the audience today. So what I will do is I will, take attendance, so to speak, and a couple of you will get a random email from me asking how we can get these to you. But again, just we're so pleased to be able to talk with you about this 30th anniversary, to have a special shout out to Chloe Walker, the archivist here at the O'Keeffe Museum, who had extras of these and shared them with us so that we could share them with you. And so that will be something that's coming up. And I do want to make sure that we have some time to answer some questions from the audience. So let me see. Let me go through here. And actually, maybe we can get started, Margaret, if you don't mind, going back to the slide that had some of the O'Keeffe iterations of the stamp that did not make it into the final design.
Sure, let's see. Probably in the 50s. Let's try that. So here,
Yes, perfect. Either of those, because we have some questions uh, for what you might be able to share about why it was why the red poppy when you had all these different versions. And, I know that that was a committee decision, but is there anything that you remember in particular about why is it the poppy that we have today?
Yeah, I think they felt like, well, the poppy was bright and beautiful and iconic. And I know that it had something to do with sort of the legal issues, I think, of what was entailed in getting the rights to be able to make the stamp. That was certainly a large part of the reason why we only did one and not 6 or 12. Um, so I think that is the primary reason, as opposed to, well, I mean, it just worked. Like there was space on the stamp to put the denomination, and for some of the others, if they're a little busier or maybe a little darker, I think they just really wanted something that would pop off the page.
And it does. I mean, it's hard to imagine a different stamp now that we've known the red poppy. But it's interesting to know that there's some formal decisions involved in what eventually makes it to the stamp. Let's see. We have a question from Carla who has a sheet of the stamps and wonders if you're still accepting sheets or stamps for signatures.
Of course, happy to sign your stamp sheet.
Amazing. We'll communicate and facilitate that for you offline, Carla. But that's great that the tradition is still alive. Let's see. We have several questions just about some of the specific decisions that went into the red poppy stamp, such as what typeface specifically became what you used to spell out Georgia O'Keeffe, and the decision to have it vertically versus horizontally. If there's anything that's kind of coming to mind as
Yeah,
to
you
why
know what?
that's
I have to tell you, I cannot remember what typeface I used. I should have looked that up before we had this meeting. But as I said, I can't open any of the files for originally. I it looks to me like it might be Frutiger. And this, I believe, is Adobe Garamond. I'm pretty sure the USA is in Adobe Garamond. And I think the other two might either be, I don't think it's Futura. I think it's a rounder, I think it's Frutiger, but I could get back to you on that. If this person is really wants to know, I can put some time into trying to remember which typeface I use. It was 30 years ago.
I know it's again, it feels so immediate because these pictures just seem so fresh and recent, but 30 years, and I think that's a lot to go on with potential typefaces. So
Um,
thank you for
it, Regarding the placement of the type, I mean, I don't know if you can see here. Like, here's a place where we tried it in gray. It like has some. There's a gray band, and the type is in white. And then I forget, in one of these others here, you can see that the type runs in different directions, across the top, the side. So we definitely were experimenting with how to treat it. But in every single case, I do know that we were trying to keep the type quiet and let the image be the thing. And so that's why we, a lot of times when you see stuff about Georgia O'Keeffe, there'll be like very flowery typography trying to sort of mimic her signature or something. And we thought about that too, like, oh, we could use her signature. But um, for me, I wanted the stamp to the image to be the thing that really came out, and to try and keep the typography sort of quiet and unobtrusive. Although you also wanted a little variety, and the denomination was important, so we made that a little bit bigger and kind of treated it like a graphic. We created a unit out of the 32 in the USA with a little rule in between it to kind of tie it together as one element. And then, as you can see from the mock-ups, just tried moving it around and decided what's the best landing spot for it.
and in the iteration that I'm familiar with, the one that became the stamp, it just seems like that's how it was always meant to be. It's interesting to realize that there were just so many different versions, different thoughts, different drafts. But it's interesting to know why those decisions were made. So thank you for sharing more about that.
Yeah, although of course when I look back on it now and I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh, the spacing isn't quite right. Why didn't I put more space there and less space there? So, I don't think anything is ever finished, but I can't change that now. So,
Uh, we are our own worst critics. But from, it's a beautiful stamp. And we're seeing lots of folks in the chat saying, like, I have these stamps. It's one of my favorites. It's so neat to hear about what it was like to make it. And I'm going to do a little shout out to Chrissy, who is a graphic designer, our graphic designer here at the O'Keeffe Museum, who
yay.
does amazing projects and all kinds of wonderful things. And we're so grateful that she's here. And she has a question from the perspective of a graphic designer that one, this has been inspiring. And she also wonders, do you receive copies of your designs that you get to keep? Like, do you get copies of the exhibition catalogs once you've produced one or stamps or anything?
Yeah, yeah, you do. I mean, stamps? No, I think I had to buy all my own stamps. So no on the stamp front. For the exhibition catalogs, usually that's part of the contract, and usually you get 2 copies. So that's pretty standard, which is not very many copies. But then again, you're not generally like sending out books to people, but you need them for portfolio, for showing, and they get damaged. And every once in a while, I will give them away if it's a particularly popular subject. I'll give them as gifts. But yeah, so you do get to keep it, and that's actually what I really love about ink on paper and making something that's tangible, and particularly a book, because you spend a year of your life working on something, and then you have a tangible product you can hold in your hands, and that's pretty amazing, to feel the solidity of your work. I mean, it's bad if you end up not liking it, but it's good if it's something that you come away with feeling proud of.
Absolutely. And just to sort of dovetail into your career overall, I'm going to fuse two questions together for a two-part question, which would be first, what is your favorite part about being a graphic designer? And second, what is the hardest part about being a graphic designer? Those are big questions, but any thoughts?
Yeah, I love that every project is a new learning experience. And partly that's because I am making books, but that's just true of any, if you're a designer, like every new project you do, you have to do research, whether it's about making a logo for a men's clothing store where you go online and you say, okay, or you go to the physical stores, you're like, okay, well, how are men's clothing, represented in general? Okay, what about this niche of maybe it's, suits, how are just those types of stores represented? What is it that they want to say about themselves? Who is their audience? All of these questions which you need to research and have a handle on. So even something like that, that's kind of in the commercial realm, versus what I do, which is books and clearly more in a nonprofit realm, even though books get sold, and you're learning about the topic of your book. It's really great, and the people, like you get to work in collaboration with some really wonderful people, and like learn about a curator's vision or how they see, for each particular show has an angle, and to learn that particular angle, and yeah, we're even like working with printers. I print a lot of books overseas in Italy, and you get to meet some amazing craftsmen who take extreme care into printing the best possible, getting the ink in just the right way on this beautiful sheet of paper. And yeah, so all of that is really, and I love that variety about it. Like sometimes I'm sitting at my desk, sometimes I'm doing research, sometimes I'm out, working in the world with other people, making presentations, all of it. It's varied, and that keeps it fresh. The hardest part of my job, I think, is easy to say, is the scheduling, particularly for books, because they're big, and most of the books have an exhibition at the end of them, which means they have a very hard and fast deadline. As most of the museums I work for basically say, we've never had an opening without the exhibition catalog in hand. Oh gosh, my phone is ringing. I'm sorry. um, so. Yeah, so and I'm at the last person on the train, so to speak. so that if somebody else is late, like the author doesn't get their text in on time, or the editor then needs more time to, or they don't have images or whatever, and it comes to me late, I have to make up time, and it's very stressful in general, and you want to get it right. So I think that's really the hardest part of being a book designer is just sort of scheduling. And then also sometimes I think you have to learn how to be a good persuader. I think that's true for all aspects of design, actually, because people have fixed ideas about what they think they want when they come to you, but you might evaluate all the information and come back and say, no, I think you don't really need a pamphlet. What you need is a poster, or just, and so then being able to convince people that, and to get people to trust you and to trust that they hired you, they're spending a lot of money on you, and therefore they should trust the decisions that you are making. So it's a tussle sometimes to arrive at a decision that everyone is happy about. So that's hard too. I think a lot of artists don't think of themselves as salesmen, but you really have to be in order to make something that you'll be proud of. So
Absolutely. And just hearing about the dynamic nature of your job and also the collaborative nature of your job, that there's so many folks that you're working with and scheduling with. And I can see how that would be both very exciting and also at times stressful to make sure everything is aligned.
I also spend quite a bit of time by myself in my office, making a 400-page book. There's a lot of actual work that has to be done. So I do spend hours and weeks where maybe I talk to nobody because I'm just here trying to make it happen. But I like both parts of it. And so that's good.
Absolutely. We probably have time for a couple more questions. So first I will share first a comment and then a question from Marilyn, who first says, "Thank you for a fabulous presentation. I'm thrilled to learn about this stamp in particular and stamps in general. I will no longer feel like a hoarder of stamps as I buy them all the time. I also have a sheet of the O'Keeffe stamps untouched. It will be brought out on the 23rd. So thank you so much for sharing, Marilyn. And your question for Margaret, do you think there is a risk for stamps to disappear as we move forward
Gosh,
into the future?
that's a harder question to answer. I don't know what's going on. People still send letters. They certainly still sometimes send wedding invitations. I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, I feel like letters and things that come in the mail are more precious than they ever used to be. And there's been some things in the news recently about the importance of handwriting and of really the specialness of getting something in the mail. So personally, I hope that they won't disappear altogether. But it is a times are changing, so who knows? Although I thought they would disappear a long time ago, and they still haven't. So I'm I'm hopeful that they will stick
Me
around.
too. Absolutely. I mean, like I said, I've learned so much. I have such a deep appreciation now. And I already did. My father actually, he collected these first day issues. He had many, many of them. In fact, he would sometimes purchase them without uh, talking with my mother, and that would be, where did these come from? But they're special, and it is really like a moment in time. So I'm hopeful too that they stay with us for a long time. And we do have other questions about folks would like getting signatures from you, which we can communicate about a little later on. And I do like to close out these conversations with just a general comment. And I will share one from, I lost it, Kathleen, who says, "Loved the presentation. My uncle was this word, the
Philatelist.
philatelist.
Philatelist,
And I
yes.
learned a new word today. And consequently, I was too in my youth. I love stamps and the stories they tell. I'm so grateful to you for sharing this long and creative process." So I think that's a wonderful note to end on because I'm grateful to you too. And we want to thank you again for taking the time to explain this and discuss this with us. And again, congratulations on the 30th anniversary of the release of this stamp. We're so glad that it is around. And before we close, are there any final things that you'd like to share?
I don't think so. It was actually really fun for me to go back and pull out the file and revisit the process. So thank you for asking me to come speak with all of you. Thank you for your attention.
Oh, and thank you again, and lots of thank yous coming from the audience. And again, for those of you who are with us first, thank you again for joining. Make sure you join us next month. We will send information about that presentation soon, and keep a lookout in your email because you'll get some of you, two of you are going to get one of these lovely first day issues as a special prize. So thank you all again. We hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And again, Margaret, thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Okay, take care, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.